In this video, we'll break down the NFL Week 9 main slate on DraftKings and FanDuel as we prepare full cash lineups on both sites. Plus, we have two special guests we think you'll enjoy. It's all coming up next. Hello, everyone. I'm Eric Lee.
And I'm Michael Wiley, and we're the Fantasy Football Consultants. Hey, Eric, another day for Daily Fantasy. I'm excited. NFL's been so much fun. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Coming off a good Week 8, and I am ready for Week 9. We have 4 core players that we like their pricing on both FanDuel and DraftKings, and I'll talk about the first one. It's running back Tony Pollard. $6,800 on DraftKings and $7,300 on FanDuel. Look, Pollard's in a great game environment this week as a home favorite, 3.5 points. Granted, his implied total is only 21, but he faces New England. Yes, that same New England defense is 30th ranked on DraftKings against running backs and 31st ranked on FanDuel. And Pollard continues to be Tennessee's bell cow back. Over the last 4 games, he has averaged over 21 touches a game. At this reasonable price, I'm glad to get him in our lineup.
Yeah, I really like it. I'm not going to be able to match you on pricing, but I'm going to match you even and maybe one up you a little bit on potential. And that's with Bijan Robinson. A little more expensive, $7,400 on DraftKings and $8,500 on FanDuel. Going up against a really bad Dallas defense this game in Atlanta. They're 30th against running backs, 31st against the run. Who would have thought that at the beginning of the season, that's where Dallas lands right now. And guess who's been heating up lately? Bijan Robinson getting touches of 18. I wish it was 80. 24 and 20 in his last 3 games. Just look what he's done. And this is one of the highest over-unders this week. Got to get a piece of this game against, again, one of the worst rushing defenses. Love Bijan Robinson this week.
Man, that Atlanta offense is looking so good now. The third core player is wide receiver Cedric Tillman, a paltry $4,300 on DraftKings and $6,100 on FanDuel. Who is Cedric Tillman, you ask? Well, you haven't been paying attention over the last 2 weeks, where he has averaged 7.5 receptions, 10.5 targets, 90 yards a game, and 1 touchdown a game over those 2 weeks. Now you go, well, what did he do before? Not much, but what changed? There were 2 big changes. One, Deshaun Watson is gone, and so is Amari Cooper. Let's take the quarterback change first. Man, Jameis Winston is moving this offense like Watson never did. And with the departure of Amari Cooper, Watson's number 1 target now is Cedric Tillman. It's not Jerry Jeudy in the first 2 games since he's taken on. And to get him at these prices, what a bargain.
Yeah, get him while you can, because that price is going to go up. Well, in the name of bargain, we got a defense for you guys that is, you're going to be surprised when I say it because of the matchup, but it's the New York Giants, who are number 1 in sacks this year. Yes, you heard that right. Even though their record doesn't show it, they're number 1 in sacks this year. Going up against a Washington defense that has been a little bit down, and that could be a little bit Washington offense, due to the fact that their quarterback's a little bit banged up. People are figuring him out a little bit. Not saying that New York's going to be playing from ahead in this game, which is what you usually want. But how about a price tag of $2,300 on DraftKings and $3,200 on FanDuel? Hey, the number 1 sack, they've been one of the more consistent defenses week to week. At this price, it allows us to do a lot with both of our lineups.
All right, so let's go into DraftKings first, then we'll do FanDuel and fill out the rest of our lineups with the help of 2 special guests.
All right, Eric, here we are on DraftKings, $29,200 to our name, $58.40 per player. I'm going to go somewhere that's going to sound a little expensive for where he's at in terms of coming out of being injured, but really like the upside and certainly the floor. If you watched this last week, you were reminded that Puka Nacua at 7,200 is truly Matthew Stafford's new favorite toy. Every week that he's been healthy, which was most of last season and all but in only week 1 and week 8, although he did get injured, in week 1, he's the number 1 target for Matthew Stafford, who rewards his great targets because he's so accurate. And Puka Nacua is a great possession receiver, which is exactly what you want on DraftKings. He's against Seattle, who, yes, can be strong at home and can disturb quarterbacks, but Matthew Stafford has handled that just fine in the past. So not a lot to show you that statistically. It's for those of you who just know his strength. Puka Nacua, high on PPR, and that's what you get with DraftKings.
That hurt, Michael, because you're so right. The Seahawks have always struggled against the Rams in these last 3 or 4 years, even when the Seahawks have had a better team. And I'm not so sure they have a better team this year, especially with their 2 wide receivers healthy. All righty. Well, the next player, we think we should be a little on the cautious side because we don't have that much, only 5,500, but we're going to have 2 guest presenters in honor of the fact that we have an election. Don't forget to vote in less than a week. So let's let them talk about who our next player is. He's going to be in the flex spot.
Thank you, Hercule and Michael Wiley. I am going to make the Fantasy Football Consultants YouTube channel great again by recommending running back Alvin Kamara at $7,800. He is expensive, but everything is expensive in this Biden economy. I'll turn it over to AI Joe Biden.
Thank you, AI Donald Trump. Look, folks, here's the deal. You got to select Alvin Kamara this week. No joke. He is facing the Carolina defense. I haven't seen a defense that bad since Donald Trump's border wall. Back to Eric Lee and Michael Wiley with the rest of the lineup.
All right. Well, thank you, President Trump and President Biden. I'll just add, Michael, that this matchup is so good for Alvin Kamara. Let's face it, Carolina has basically given up. Deontay Johnson is now a Raven. And, man, they're 7.5-point favorites over Carolina. I think I would take New Orleans with those points. 25 implied total for Alvin Kamara. And you just pick a defense. They're the worst defense in the NFL, folks. They're dead last against the run. They're dead last overall. I like Kamara and his involvement in the passing game on DraftKings full PPR.
Yeah, no, especially with PPR. That's right. Well, I got to save us some money, Eric, because the presidents, they're spendy, which we all know. We all know. So, hey, I'm going to go, sadly enough, to my Raiders at the quarterback position because I can't believe how low they priced Gardner Minshew. I guess they're not sure he's going to start this week. I guess that could be part of it. This is truly about the savings, guys. Cincinnati has been, somewhat susceptible against the pass, but Gardner Minshew hasn't been that impressive. But at $4,500, keep on going.
I couldn't believe he was this low.
Yeah, exactly. He doesn't get any cheaper than that. And so what it does, with somebody who has an okay floor going up against Cincinnati on the road, let's face it, they're going to be playing from behind. Cincinnati, they gotta win this game. And they're going to win this game, which means the Raiders are going to be playing from behind, which means Gardner Minshew is going to be tossing the rock. He'll get a garbage touchdown to get you a nice little floor here and save us some money for some other positions.
I like it, especially at that price. So where do I want to go from here? I'm going to have to save us some money as well at wide receiver and just hum some tunes to see how low I have to go, kind of like a limbo. How low can you go with Parker Washington at $3,600? All right. This is all about the medical update in Jacksonville. Christian Kirk is out for the season. And on top of that, we have Brian Thomas and Gabe Davis, the 2 wide receivers who would be ahead of him, who are questionable. So even if both of those guys play, Washington is still going to be a starter and he'll get a decent number of snaps. But if just one of those guys are out, I turn from liking this pick at 3,600 to loving it, especially if it's Brian Thomas Jr. who is out. Paltry price, worth it given his potential at this price.
Man, the injuries that have just hit wide receivers this year has been crazy. Makes for opportunities like that. And that's what you need to do on these daily fantasy sites. You've got to take advantage of injuries. So, Eric, you've left me $6,100. What can we do at the tight end position? I'm going to go as high as I can because the number one reception guy in all of the NFL for tight ends has been Brock Bowers, number one in targets as well, going up against Cincinnati, who has been 24th against tight ends. We got an extra $100 to spare. Not sure how we can use it, but what do you want? When you're going PPR, you want the number one reception guy, and that's been Brock Bowers.
Yeah, and Michael, you're the Raider expert, but to me, when they traded Devontae Adams away, he is now clearly their number one target. I know they also have wide receiver Jacoby Myers, but it just looks like, and having Minshew back there, that he is going to target him a lot. All right, that's our DraftKings lineup. Let's move over to FanDuel. All right, with our 4 players already in the lineup that were our core players on FanDuel, we can spend almost $7,000 per player, and I'm going to spend some of that money right off the top at running back with my running back from the Seattle Seahawks, Ken Walker III, at $8,000. Let me just address the elephant in the room. He had a horrible game last week, which is why we get probably a few dollars discounted off his price. But the fact is he was dealing with an illness and game script got way away from the Seahawks. I don't think that should be a problem this week. He is home. He's only a 2-point dog, solid 23 implied total. And he plays a Ram team, and it was just on the screen a second ago, that has a rush ranking of 26. So I think that will be exposed. Happy to get Walker in our lineup because of that dual threat he has on the ground and in the air.
Yeah, look at the touches he gets, like you say, just this 1 week against him. Okay, so I'm gonna go to the wide receiver position and take advantage of a guy who's priced pretty nice because he had a couple of bad weeks, but he's still the number one in Denver at $6,000. It is Courtland Sutton, saving us some money. Where is he? He's right there. Going up against Baltimore, who, they've been good against the pass, but not necessarily against wide receivers. The 31st against wide receivers. He's the clear number one, let's face it, in Denver. And we saw it again last week. He was a little bit grumpy, you could see, for 2 weeks there, although he did get in the end zone the week before. And he got the rock, which was good for Denver, even going up against Carolina, who they beat the pants off of. He still got that number of receptions and yards. And I think he's just going to be more targeted in a game where they're probably going to be playing from behind. Let's face it, Baltimore, after that ugly loss, disappointing loss to Cleveland, is going to have to play strong, and they're at home. I think they're going to play strong.
All right. Nice to get potentially 2 number one wide receivers in our lineup for about $6,000. I don't think I can argue that my wide receiver is a number one wide receiver at $6,200, a little more expensive than both. Don't like him quite as much, but I like he is the number 2, Jalen Waddle from the Miami Dolphins. Now, Michael, you have to show the log, but I'm going to kind of close my eyes. I don't want to even look at it because it's bad, folks. It is bad. He has been a huge disappointment this year. I know he's on my fantasy football team, but a whole lot of that has to do with the fact that Tua has been out. Now Tua is back. He has a game under his belt, and Tua and Waddle have been a great combination. I've said for many years that don't compare Waddle to Hill, just compare him to other wide receivers, and he puts up big time numbers. He hasn't this year, which is why we're getting this low price. but I think this is a great spot to get him in. And if you're thinking about Tyreek Hill, yeah, I know he's better, but he's $2,300 more than Waddle. That's too much. If I want to get exposure and a benefit to getting Tua back in the lineup, I'm going here with Waddle.
Yeah, I mean, such a talent. I like it. At the tight end position, I'm going to go with, can't quite afford the guy that we talked about that gets the number one amount of targets and receptions for tight end, but number two, not far behind him and actually trying to creep up to take over the number one spot, has been Trey McBride, arguably the number one target in Arizona, and arguably nothing. He is, has a pretty good matchup here. 15th against tight ends is the Chicago Bears. And again, he's been number two in targets for tight ends. And you can just see that he's just been really important to that team, and pretty nice week coming up.
Yeah, I think the surprise from the offseason that we thought Marvin Harrison Jr. would be the number one targeted guy by Kyler Murray, but it really has been Trey McBride. So love to get him as a home favorite. We always look for that in tight ends with a reasonable implied total. Same thing with quarterbacks, a home favorite with a reasonable implied total. A guy who is back to his normal star self at $7,900 is Joe Burrow. So we used up all our money, but again, no offense to the Raiders, but they have our defense that has struggled this year, giving up plenty of points and plenty of yards. Remember, Joe Burrow now has a full arsenal to throw to with a healthy Chase and a healthy T. Higgins. Guy's just a great talent. He hasn't gone off, which is why in the last couple of weeks, which is why we get a little bit of a discount. But the matchup, I think he's going to be big for us this week, Michael.
Yep, I agree. I like this matchup. Spend all our dollars. And I think not only do we have a nice floor, we got some upside.
Man, I can't believe it, Michael. We are after the next week. We are halfway through the season, and we'll see. We might be able to have an extra show for you next week commemorating halftime of this regular season. So stay tuned. So if you haven't yet, please hit that red subscribe button. Until next week, take care, everybody.
Bye-bye. We'll put 2 videos up that we think you'll enjoy.